A scarcity mindset makes statements. An abundance mindset asks questions.
That's good.
A scarcity mindset will make a statement like, oh, this isn't possible for me. And an abundance mindset would ask a question and say, how can this be possible for me? A scarcity mindset would make a statement and say, I can't afford that. Whereas an abundance mindset would say, what can I do to afford that? How can I afford that?
If you believe that God has no beginning, has no end, is all powerful, is omnipresent, right? Is all knowing, when the source is limitless, then we can tap into that limitlessness. Our origins are from a limitless thing, not from limitations.
If the enemy can't convince you that God is limited, he'll have you believing that your access to him is. Because I'd always say, yeah, I do believe it's possible. God can do anything. I would always say that. God can do anything.
Will he do it for me?
But will he do it for me? We get to choose what God we serve. You can choose to serve the God of abundance, or you can choose to serve the God of lack, but it's really all about your belief and how you see him. The enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And if he can come and steal your faith, which is the currency in the kingdom, then he can actually steal the ability for you to be able to see abundance in your own life. If we truly believe that God is who he says he is, if we truly believe that God is an abundant God and he desires to give to us abundantly, then you tap into that.
What's going on, family? It is Elijah here with my beautiful wife, Avrielle.
Hello.
Chanel. Kate. Muse.
He's so annoying for that. He knows I hate when he does that.
Y'all don't want to know her middle name. That joint is ratchet.
I know you're not talking about all your ghetto sibling names.
Hey, it skipped me, so I'm good. she cracking jokes. I do have some. My brothers and sisters do have some ratchet names, but I love them still.
We love them.
Luckily, it don't match their personalities. They're all amazing people. We only had one of us that went to prison.
I'm really glad that you guys are seeing the politically incorrect side of my husband, because this is how he is. He be ignorant sometimes, guys.
Anyway, we're back with another podcast today, y'all. It's been a couple weeks. Thank y'all for the wait.
It's definitely been more than a couple weeks. Actually, I think the last time I dropped an episode was a couple weeks, but I don't know if they're going to see this episode right away.
Today, we're going to be talking about an abundance mindset versus a scarcity mindset.
Yes.
All right. So this is something that a lot of people are walking through, and something we've been having some conversations about.
Yes.
And we've been walking through as well. And so we just thought we would bring y'all into the conversation here today, and we would just hopefully give some advice, some tips, some strategies on if you have a scarcity mindset, if that's something that you feel like you've been walking through, if you feel like you don't necessarily believe in yourself, if you don't believe that God will provide. It's like whatever the beliefs that you hold around scarcity, hoping that we can receive some freedom today.
Yeah, for real.
Chains will be broken.
Absolutely. And we're going to start it off by defining the different mindsets and then also giving you guys the signs, because it's really easy to miss, I would say, the ways that scarcity can play out in your life. I know for me, I'm constantly learning maybe a way that I think or a way that I react to a certain situation is exposing scarcity. And I'm always learning and unlearning that so that I can actually embrace an abundance mindset and really see all of the things that are available to me. So let's dive into it. So first, we're going to define scarcity. A scarcity mindset is the belief that resources such as money, opportunities, success, or even love is limited. So it's essentially a mindset that's focused on limitations.
Yep.
And I actually, when I first read this to Elijah, I was actually so intrigued at the word love here. Wow, you can even show scarcity around the idea of love. So I really want us to talk about that too.
Yeah, I think it can apply to any category, any area of your life.
Absolutely.
You can have scarcity surrounding anything.
Yes.
You can believe scarcity.
Right. Okay, and an abundance mindset is the belief that there are enough resources and opportunities for everyone to succeed. So you believe that resources and opportunities are unlimited and that there's always a constant flow. Okay, and then we're going to get into the signs that you have a scarcity mindset. So please pay attention here, because one of the things that Elijah said when we were discussing this that I thought was really good was the same sickness in different people can manifest in different ways. And I love that he said that, because it's honestly true. as I was reading through some of the signs, I was like, wait, I've actually never exhibited that, but I have exhibited this, and just how different things can show up in different people. It's really easy to really miss scarcity because it can show up in different ways, and it could be hard to diagnose, I think, in small ways. So we're going to get into the signs. What'd you say?
It can show up subtly.
Absolutely. Yeah, it can. Okay. So one of the signs of a scarcity mindset is a fear of running out. Okay. So you constantly worry that there isn't enough time, money, resources, even love to go around. And I've seen this, honestly, even in my comments, because on my social media, I'm constantly like sharing about our relationship and our marriage to inspire and encourage people and let them see that it truly is possible to be in a healthy marriage. And I'm constantly seeing comments like, wow, they don't make men like this no more, or do men even do this?
Which even like those types of comments, now that you're saying it, doesn't make sense at all. Like what you're looking at currently tells you that what you're saying and what you're saying is false.
Right. But when you hold a mindset, it can be such a stronghold in your life of scarcity that even when you see something that proves what you're saying to be false, you still believe what you believe because you believe it. At the end of the day, it's a stronghold in your life. So I think it's just really important for us to actually talk about that. But okay, we're going to keep going down.
More signs.
Comparison and competition is another sign of scarcity. So you see others' success as a threat to your own. Okay. Another big one is a hoarding mentality. So you hold on to resources tightly because you fear that you won't get any more. And we see this in Exodus 16. I actually just read this a couple days ago, and I was sharing with Elijah. In Exodus 16, God tells the Israelites, he tells the Hebrews, hey, listen, I'm going to provide for you, and I'm going to bring manna down from heaven, okay? Right. So he says, I'm going to provide for you in a miraculous way. But he says, listen, I'm going to see if they're going to be obedient to me. And the way that he does that is he says, hey, only collect enough for what you need for this day. He gives them a specific measurement of how much they can collect for that day. And instead of them believing that, okay, God is going to do what he says he's going to do and he's going to provide for me the next day, they end up storing up more than he says. And then what ends up happening is it goes bad and it ends up rotting. And he does that to show them, hey, you don't actually trust that there is a flow. You don't actually trust that I'm going to provide more for you. So they hoarded, and that really showed a scarcity mentality because they didn't believe that there would be more.
Yep. It's, as you're talking, it's something that's interesting to me is even if someone, that's God, who's a perfect example, has a track record of following his word, of doing what he said he's going to do, we still have a hard time as human beings believing in the things that are unseen.
That's so good.
Even if we've seen things that maybe were invisible before or took a while to come into reality, we've seen it happen. It's like there's still doubt whether it can happen again.
Yeah.
Whether God can do it again.
That's so good. Another sign is risk avoidance. So you hesitate to take chances because you fear failure or loss. A negative self-talk. So you'll say things like, I'll never get another opportunity like this. Elijah thought this one was crazy. And then fixed mindset. So you believe talent and success are limited rather than something that you can grow.
All right, so I'm going to jump into the signs of an abundance mindset. So this includes belief in unlimited possibilities. So you trust that more opportunities will come. Another sign of an abundance mindset is that you're celebrating others' success. You don't see other people's success as a competition. You don't see other people succeeding as just something that's going to take away from your chances of succeeding.
Right.
Like if you believe in abundance, if you think that opportunities and success are unlimited, then we can all succeed together. It's not a this or that, them or me type game.
That's good.
You freely share knowledge, resources, and encouragement. All right, so generous people usually have an abundance mindset. Embracing risks is another sign of an abundance mindset. You're open to stepping out in faith, knowing failure is a part of growth. Another sign is optimistic language. You say things like, there's always another way. You continue to look for opportunities. You continue to look for doors that can be opened, even if doors have been closed in your face in the past.
That's really good. Yeah, so For us, I think it makes sense for us to kind of share some personal stories. Like before we started this podcast, Elijah and I were actually chatting about how we have our own experiences, even when it comes to maybe financial trauma when we were kids and how that played out in our lives. So for me, I had a long period of time in my childhood where it felt like resources were scarce. And I've shared about that on the podcast before. But that created this stronghold of scarcity in my mind. Whereas for Elijah,
My experience was that resources didn't have to be spread as thin. I had, 2-parent household. And I was blessed. My mom and dad were both married. They were in the house. They both worked. And so for the majority of my life, like we were comfortable. And then kind of like around '08, '09 during the recession, I was in high school. My dad lost his job. We experienced some hard times, ended up losing our house, having to move. Things got tight financially. And so I think it was, I think there was just some things that went on like that financially were traumatizing. Um, and we were saying that in comparison to kind of how you were raised, which was it was kind of a consistent, um, like not y'all weren't poor by any means, but it was just a consistent like we
there's
have
not
enough,
enough.
we have or there's just enough,
Yeah.
to make it, and we're gonna penny pinch. Like we're gonna make sure that every single dollar, every single cent is accounted for.
Right.
And so it kind of taught different lessons
Right.
going through life, and it pushed us in different directions.
Right. I thought it was interesting that me having a more consistent pattern of scarcity in my childhood ended up leading to this stronghold of scarcity in my mind where it was so hard for me to see the opportunities that were available to me. I doubted if God even gave abundantly, and if he did, I would think sometimes, okay, well he gives abundantly to some, but he doesn't really give abundantly to me, or why doesn't he give abundantly to me? And it just really impacted my view of God. Whereas for you, that one traumatic moment planted a seed for you to actually go harder, and you just think abundantly.
I would also say I don't think that came overnight. So it wasn't, as we're talking through it, it wasn't just that one experience
Mm-hmm.
that shaped my mindset. One of the earliest triggers that I can think of that really gave me a drive to succeed was we lost our house, the house that we were living in when I was in high school. I think I was a freshman in high school. And I remember someone from a bank coming knocking on our door and saying, "Hey, like we're about to throw y'all stuff out on the lawn. Like y'all have to move out. Blah blah blah. Like the bank is taking this house back. All that, right?" And so a couple of weeks later, we end up moving, and I think like that's was one of the first moments, and then also like having just responsibility around that time, having to buy my own car, pay my own phone bill and insurance and all that good stuff. Was like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to figure it out, like this money finance thing out, and just help out my family as well. So that definitely probably planted some of the first seeds of drive and
Mm.
motivation. But then I think it really took time and a lot of exposure through reading. I think I would say reading because I don't feel like I was exposed to a lot of people necessarily who were uber successful, were extremely successful early on in life. Like we're blessed with that now. But it was more so through reading. I remember I read a Dean Graziosi book in college also on how to make your first $1 million in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And that was also one of those monumental moments for me where I was like, man, I don't even think I've ever had a conversation with anybody about making $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
That was one I didn't even know that was a possibility. Had never really thought about it. And he was like, not only is it a possibility to make it, like he grew up fairly poor, like nothing special, not a special life, no trust funds or anything like that. And like I think if I remember correctly, like Dean bought one of his first houses for like 50K or something, 60K. So it seemed attainable. It wasn't like you got to buy this $1 million house to make $1 million. It was like, oh no, you can just start small. And so there was these moments in life as I went along that continued to plant seeds. Some of them were from negative situations,
Right.
and some of them were from positive situations. But I think that, along with a lot of the generic books that you hear, Think and Grow Rich, How to Win Friends and Influence People, like those books as well, reading a lot of that stuff, reading some biographies on successful entrepreneurs, all that stuff. One, opened my eyes to what was possible. And then two, showed me the amount of work that was required to get there.
Yeah.
And so I think that combination of experiences and exposures started to mold me into a person that just believed bigger,
Yeah.
And then luckily, I wasn't around too many negative people, because I
Right.
think that could just as have easily molded me into
You.
being something else, being someone else. And that's just by chance.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what I appreciate about you the most is that you don't make negative experiences a stronghold. Like, you don't make it a whole framework for your life. And I feel like I make negative experiences a framework sometimes. And I'm
Okay.
actually growing from that.
Yeah.
But that's something that you've really helped me to see. Like, okay, just because that was true in that circumstance and that happened doesn't mean it needs to be truth. Like,
Right.
and that was really good for me to hear,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just really appreciate how we've had some similarities, not all the way, of course, but some similarities when it came to lack and scarcity. But you operate differently from that place, obviously, because of all those things you mentioned, reading books and all that stuff. But I went in a little bit more of a different direction. And now I'm not anymore. But
There we go.
but yeah, like, I think it's so important for us to even mention so that you guys diagnose it in your own life, because one of the big things that I want to mention and also want us to point out is the fact that it really does impact your faith and impacts like who you believe God to be. And I was listening to this video, and in the video, it was Myron Golden, and he was talking about abundance and scarcity. And he was talking about how we get to choose what God we serve. Like, you can choose to serve the God of abundance, or you can choose to serve the God of lack, but it's really all about your belief and how you see him. And he was essentially saying how the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And if he can come and steal your faith, which is the currency in the kingdom, then he can actually steal the ability for you to be able to see abundance in your own life, to see your gifts that can turn into things that can help you create thriving businesses and create income into your life. Like, even steal your faith to believe in love, like to believe that God can bring you somebody in your life, Even one of the examples you used before we started the podcast, which was really good, was you've heard people say, man, if I bring another child into this world, am I going to have the capacity to love?
Love them, yeah.
Like, can I? It's like all of that is scarcity. Like,
Like where does love come from?
where does love come from?
Is there a factory inside of your chest that's
Right.
producing it, or like
Is God the source?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like, if we truly believe that God is who he says he is, if we truly believe that God is an abundant God and he is ever flowing with love and he desires to give to us abundantly, then you tap into that. But a lot of times we don't tap into that because, one, we don't see it, and because we believe him to be something different than who he says he is. And I think that's so important for us to just analyze and assess in our own lives, because I really do believe it determines whether or not we see lack or abundance in our own lives.
Yeah, definitely. It goes, I think scarcity versus abundance all comes back to your belief about God, 100%.
Yeah.
And if you believe that God has no beginning, has no end, is all powerful,
Ooh.
is omnipresent, right? Is all knowing, and he is spirit, then he cannot be contained, right?
Mm-hmm.
He created this world, our earth, right? And like, yes, we're in like a physical world which has limits, but when the source is limitless, then like we can tap into that limitlessness, right?
Yeah.
And that is all around us. So there's abundance all around us. But it's like, I think maybe we just don't, maybe a lot of people don't think about where we came from, right? They don't think about who created us, or they don't believe in the God that created us.
Yeah.
And so I'm just of the belief that everything comes from spirit.
Yeah.
Like, God is spirit, and he spoke things into existence. right? And so if that's the foundation, then our origins are from a limitless thing, not
That's so
from
good.
limitations.
That's so
And so we
good.
got to start there and then
Right.
expound from there. Yeah.
And it
Yes,
makes
ma'am.
sense that the enemy would try to pervert that and have us believe that God is limited, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
One of the other scriptures that I would want to reference is Genesis 21, okay? We know that Hagar ends up sleeping with Abraham. They end up having their son, Ishmael.
Mm-hmm.
This makes Sarah upset over time, and she ends up telling them, hey, you guys need to go, essentially. Hagar leaves, she's with her son, and there's nothing around. She's like, oh my gosh, there's nothing around. Like, we're going to die. And then an angel comes to Hagar and says this, but God heard the boy crying, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven, Hagar, what's wrong? Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. Go to him and comfort him, for I will make a great nation from his descendants. And then in verse 9, it says, then God opened Hagar's eyes, and she saw a well full of water. She quickly filled her water container and gave the boy a drink. And I thought that was really powerful because Hagar, it doesn't say, oh, and then God created a well. It was clear that the scripture says God opened Hagar's eyes. And I thought that was really powerful because a lot of times when we don't see, like we don't see abundantly, it can blind us from seeing all that's actually available to us. And that was there. That well was there. It would have said God created the well, but it didn't. It said God opened Hagar's eyes to see the well. And I believe that's a prayer that we all need to pray. Like, God, open my eyes to see that the abundant resources that are in my life, to see maybe the gifts that you put in me, to see just all of the ways that I can actually tap into an abundant resource.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I'm rereading a book right now, 10X is easier than 2X. And there's a similar example in that book of like the goals that you set. So the guy, Benjamin Hardy, who wrote the book, said that he was talking with a real estate investor. And he gave the real estate investor a challenge, which was just set a 10X goal this year. So if your goal is to make 500,000, set a goal to make 5 million. And the guy was like, whatever, I'll try it. Sure, let's try it. So he set this goal of, let's say, I'm not giving specific numbers, but let's say it was 5 million. He had initially just been looking for like single family homes to purchase, to flip, or to rent out, right? But it's like when you set a bigger goal, he was like, man, there's no way I'm going to make this goal this year with following the same strategy. So what happened was his vision shifted. He started looking for different opportunities,
That's
right?
so good.
Because his goal was different, he started looking for different opportunities, and he knew the channel that he used to get to where he was at was not going to be the same channel that got him to the new goal. So what happened was he started looking for different opportunities, and he found, oh, there's these apartments. There's these larger complexes, multi-family units, where it's like instead of making, I don't know, 10 grand a month, I can make 100 grand a month on these. And it actually didn't take that much more work when it came to acquiring the property. It was like, I really just needed to look for something different.
Yeah.
It was like, this was always there. These opportunities have been there all along. As I've been doing the little small things over here,
That's good.
these big opportunities have been there. And what I've experienced is that a lot of times the big opportunities don't take much more energy than the little opportunities, right? It all takes energy. It all takes effort. It's just you have to be willing to step forward. And even I hear a lot of people talking about how, like, when you start opening your eyes towards other things and you start seeing all of the possibilities and the potentials that are there, when you're not confining, because I think scarcity is just like really, you're confining yourself.
Yeah.
And you're confining the opportunities and you're putting yourself into this small box and saying, I can't do anything outside of this. And when you start expanding your vision, you realize that like the things that you feared, the things that you thought you weren't capable of, not only are you capable of them, but because so many other people are stuck in the scarcity mindset along with you, when you step out of that mindset, it's actually easier as you go higher up.
That's good.
It's like, man, down here in this small box, there's like 50 of us. When I step outside of the box, I'm the only one out here. So there's not as much competition. when I don't have a scarcity mindset,
That's good.
you know?
Yeah. I feel like a scarcity mindset makes statements, and
Okay.
abundance mindset asks
Ask
questions.
That's good.
You
I
know,
like it.
a scarcity mindset will make a statement like, oh, this isn't possible for me. And an abundance mindset would make us ask a question and say, how can this be possible for me?
Yeah.
A scarcity mindset would make a statement and say, I can't afford that. Whereas an abundance mindset would say, what can I do to afford
How
that?
do I afford it? Yeah.
How can I afford that? This year, I would say I'm very intentional about actually inviting God into the process. I don't think I've actually ever intentionally asked God to show me who he is as an abundant God. I've never asked that.
Okay.
And
That's
that's
a
a
big prayer.
journey I'm on this year is, okay, I'm tired of questioning and wondering whether or not you're abundant or not. And I'm tired of doubting the fact that you're abundant. I really want to believe that there is flow when it comes to you. So help me to see you as that God. And I just feel like he's opening my eyes to all of the ways that I've limited him and not the ways that he's limited himself. You know,
Right.
I think that it's been a lack of faith in my life.
Okay.
So I would say that's what it is. Like inviting God into it has really been impactful. Okay. So I really want us to help people, for them to see like, okay, how can you believe abundantly? And I feel like there's nobody better to talk about that than Elijah. Elijah thinks he can conquer the world, honestly. Elijah thinks he can build Rome in a day. You know how they say that you can't build Rome in a day? Elijah thinks he can, okay? No, seriously, this man thinks he can do anything.
Me
I
and
love that.
Me and Elon Musk together.
No, seriously, okay?
Let him do it.
So yeah, I love that about you. So I think that that's something that you need to share to the people, okay? And then also after that, I really want you to tap into the river versus reservoir.
Tap into the river.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Not just ankle deep, waist deep on the way in. All right, so let's go over some ways that you can get from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. I think one of the biggest ways that you can make that shift is by getting around people, exposing yourself to people who believe in abundance, right? Get around people who believe in abundance and get around people who are experiencing abundance. And this can be in person. This can be online. You can follow them on social media. You can listen to their podcasts. You can watch their videos. But you need to just start forcing yourself to look at images, real life people that are talking about abundance and that are experiencing abundance in real life. I think a lot of times, if all you see is lack, if all you see is struggle, if all you see is barely making it or not making it, then like your beliefs are going to be surrounded by what you see.
Right.
But if you shift your environment, then you can start to believe something different.
So
You know,
good.
like if you grew up in the mountains in the snow and you've never seen a beach, you might even like, and this isn't, I'm thinking 1600s, you might not even believe that a beach exists, you know? So you have to change your environment. That's the first thing. Second thing, really should be first actually, I think is the top priority, I'll say, is having a realistic understanding and perspective of who God is.
That's good.
So understanding that we serve a God of abundance, that we do not serve a God of lack. And if we are obedient to God, then there is no good thing that he will withhold from us, right?
That's good.
And so I think having a healthy perspective of who God is will help shift your mindset. Some other practical things is just reading. I think reading, and this kind of goes to the exposure point, but reading books that will help expand your mindset, that will help you believe more, believe for more, believe in abundance. I think for me, that was probably one of the biggest impacts on my mindset was just constantly consuming books and information on why abundance is possible and why it's best. You know, like I've just read so many books. I've heard so many stories at this point that I refuse to believe that scarcity is a thing. Like it may be a thing for you, but like it ain't coming to my circle.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not a thing for my family. Like there's so much certainty and there's such a strong belief just based off of the constant affirmations. You know, I think when it comes to forming beliefs, you have to build up like your walls essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And you can build up positive walls too.
Right.
And so I think if you've been surrounded by scarcity and you've been surrounded by people who talk negatively or who talk like they don't know if they're going to make it, then however many interactions you've had with the negative things, you need to double, triple, 5x, 10x
Yeah.
the amount of positive interactions that you have to replace those beliefs. It's like it can't be a one for one thing.
Right.
Like if it's one negative interaction, you need to have like 5 to 10 positive interactions, opposite interactions to counteract those beliefs. So when you're starting to make these shifts, my belief is go extreme.
Yeah.
Like be extreme in replacing these beliefs, because the thing is, our beliefs are so deeply ingrained in us that you can't just say something one time and believe that something that you thought your whole life will be gone.
Yeah. That's so true.
Like it may be gone momentarily, but let you experience a hard month. Like let your car break down and you have to, spend a couple thousand to get it fixed. Them scarcity beliefs will pop back up in a hurry.
Yeah.
And that's okay if they do, but that's why you need constant reinforcements, with the abundant stuff, so that when those negative beliefs pop up, you're thinking, no, I have this. I'm holding on to this. I'm holding on to this. I'm holding on to this. Like these are the things that that are anchoring me in this abundance mindset.
Yes. In connection to what you said about having a healthy perspective of God,
Yep. Talk about it.
I think it's important for us to also realize that if the enemy can't convince you that God is limited, he'll have you believing that your access to him is. And I think that was actually a really big way that the enemy got me, honestly, was because I'd always say, yeah, I do believe it's possible. God can do anything. I would always say that God can do anything.
But will he do it for me?
But will he do it for me? That is something I said all the time. And we really need to tackle that because, like I said earlier, we need to believe that God is not withholding from us. We have to believe that he truly does extend his hand towards us.
Yeah, so this is something that our producer Will blessed us with.
Come on, Will.
As we were talking about kind of planning out this episode.
Producer, PA, production assistant, all the things.
All the things, all the titles. And so something that we were talking about was just, once again, connected to this shift. How do we get out of this scarcity mindset and get into this abundance mindset? An analogy that he had came up with was looking at a river versus a reservoir, right? So you have two bodies of water, right? With a river, you have a constant stream. You have something that's constantly moving, constantly flowing, something that we have access to, something that you can pull from, and you're not going to see like the strength. You're not going to see the fullness diminish at all.
Yeah.
Like a river is not going to be affected by you taking out a cup and scooping a little bit out.
Right.
Right. Versus a reservoir is something that is limited. It was created to hold in water reserves, right?
Yeah.
So we were kind of just comparing that a river is the abundance mindset.
Yeah.
Right? You have this constant stream, and it could be resources. It could be ideas. It could be love. It could be positive emotions. It could be relationships. Whatever it is, it's like most things in this life, there's a constant flow, right? There's always new opportunities flowing. So it may not be the same opportunity, right? You may miss out on one specific opportunity. You may miss out on these droplets of water, but the good thing is that there's something just as great, just as equal coming towards you, right? Versus the reservoir mindset, the scarcity mindset just is like, all right, there's only a limited amount of this thing. So I'm going to collect as much of it as possible. And I'm going to hold on to it for as long as possible. Yeah. I'm not going to worry about anyone else, especially because like with the reservoir or like a dam, it's like we're trying to control as much of this water as possible. And if that affects the environment, if that affects the landscape downstream, then so be it. As long as this reservoir is full, we're good and we'll hold on to it and try to refill it as it comes. And like that works, but it can have negative impacts. Right. And so just in those two comparisons, making sure that whatever area of life you feel like you may have a scarcity mindset in, it's like start to believe that opportunities are limitless.
Yeah. And they're ever flowing.
Start to believe that resources are limitless. Like, if something doesn't happen today, that does not mean that it will never happen. There will always be another way. There will always be another person. There will always be, even for the folks out there who have gone through a divorce, like, you can find love again.
Yeah.
You can have another relationship again, right? If you lose a friend, whatever it may be, like, these things are not limited, and maybe like you don't experience it in the same way.
Right.
It's not going to be the exact same experience. That does not mean that there is not an experience that can replace or fulfill you in a similar way.
Right. And something else that he said in relation to the river versus the reservoir that I really loved was he was saying a reservoir is man-made. So you gatekeep access.
Yep.
You control access, and it shows that you have a different type of relationship with the source. Whereas a river is God-made, and you are tapping into something that's going to be there even after you leave. And I really love that because it's like, no, I'm having trust in a different source. I'm having trust in God that this is going to continue to flow whether I tap into it or not. And that really just takes us taking the steps to actually tap into what's already there and what's already made available to us.
Yeah, definitely. Something else, because I'm always thinking about business. And so when it comes to abundance in business, something I think about is, like, I think a common belief is that, all right, funds are limited. Like, there's only so much money in circulation. You know, the rich have all the money.
Yeah.
Poor people don't have any money, and it's not coming my way, blah, blah, blah. And, like, two things to that. One, we literally print money.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So, like,
that's crazy.
the idea of money being limited is just false. Like, when the government decides to print more and put more money into circulation, they can literally create more money from nothing, right? So even when it comes to finances, like, there's not necessarily a limit on the money, on the creation of money, right?
Yeah.
And then also along with that, when it comes to value, like, I think about in terms of business, we are trying to make money, but we make money through providing value to people, right? And so value is not something tangible that you can hold necessarily. Value is different from person to person to person. So what you find valuable and what I find valuable and what someone else down the street finds valuable is going to be completely different, right? But I can do something to create value for you in your life, and someone else could create value for you in different ways, right? And you could pay each person for that value that they've created for you in your life.
Right.
So it's like, even when it comes to business, it's like there will always be opportunities in business. It's not a limited thing, because as long as humans exist and as long as people have needs, then you can create value and you can fulfill those needs, and people are willing to pay you for it. So it's just like, I see abundance everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
You know, it's nothing but.
That's so good. This is so good. My mind is going in so many different directions, but I'm like, we need to wrap this
Just
up.
wrap it up, yeah.
Okay? We need to wrap this up. So maybe we'll do another part 2 or something like that.
Depending on how y'all respond.
Yeah,
out
we'll
there,
see
YouTube
how you
world.
guys respond to this. But if this is something you guys like, let us know, and we'll honestly make a part 2, because I actually feel like there's so many different directions we can go with this, and there's so much to unpack with this. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Please leave a comment, like, and subscribe on YouTube if that's where you're watching. And if you are listening through audio, please leave a rating and review on any platform that you are listening to. So thank you guys so much for being here. And
I'm gonna leave them off with one more thing.
Okay.
So when it comes, no, you're good. When it comes to scarcity, now you said holding on, right? Hoarding is a sign of a scarcity mindset. You better not have 3 crock pots in your pantry no more. You need 1 crock pot. If you got 3 crock pots, I didn't see your aunties and your uncles. They got 3 crock pots in their pantry. Get rid of them. You only need 1.
What? Why are you saying this? I literally, I don't know where that came from, but I'm like, Elijah's trying to get that hoarding mentality, okay? So anyway, don't hoard. And like I was saying, please comment, like, subscribe, and listen. If you're listening via audio, please leave a rating and review. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever else. But I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and thank you so much for listening and watching. Bye, guys.
Peace.